Every year, dozens of video games are released which are fun to play, look great, and even include decent stories. However, the difference between a fun, good game and a masterpiece is always noticeably different. Elden Ring has dominated the year of 2022 with how amazing of a video game it is. The graphics are beautiful, the gameplay is the best that the Souls-like video games have offered thus far, and as always, the flexibility in the RPG mechanics is unparalleled. It's a game that you can play for 700 hours and still find new things in because of how many different routes, quests, enemies, and even ways to play you can find. Without a doubt, Elden Ring is the top contender of the Game of the Year tag with a little competition. Or that would have been the case if God of War Ragnarok didn't release in the same year. God of War Ragnarok was easily one of the most anticipated video games of the last 3 years. Even though not everyone owns a PlayStation right now, people have played the God of War games throughout the years in the older consoles. And the 2018 game even made its way onto the PC, which helped even more people to get a taste of this magnificent crafted experience. And to no one's surprise, Ragnarok has impressed critics and gamers alike, with the game receiving 10 out of 10 scores on the most major publications. So as you'd expect, this game is now a contender for the Game of the Year 2022 as well. So out of the both of these excellent games that Elden Ring and God of War Ragnarok are, which one is better and more likely to win the Game of the Year awards? Let's compare the two of the games and see if we can find a winner. Now let's start with the thing that we usually see. If anything else, it is obviously the graphics. Elden Ring is one of the best looking games that we've had in the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation 5 generation of the gaming, without a doubt. The individual textures of each model may not be groundbreaking, but the world design and how unique the designs of the characters look end up making it a visual treat. If it was a game created solely for the PlayStation 5, then it might actually look even better. But since it runs pretty well on the PlayStation 4 too, it's undeniable that some of the concessions had to be made. God of War Ragnarok, on the other hand, is a similar story. Generally speaking, it is one of the most detailed looking games, and every character has an insane high amount of detail on their skin and clothing. As for the world itself, that too is so beautiful and stunning to look at. It's a great competition between the two, but Ragnarok is the same boat as Elden Ring due to the one reason. It's a game made for both PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation 5, and it reuses many of the prequel's assets too, which hold it back from improving too much graphically. So while it's a very visually striking game, it still looks similar to 2018's God of War, and due to that, it is not a leap ahead of Elden Ring in any way. Thus, both of the games are a tie in the graphics department. The gameplay is normally the main reason you buy a game, and that's what often determines the winner of the Game of the Year awards too. Let's start with Elden Ring. It has one of the best gameplay experiences that you can find in the RPG games, thanks to the incredible amount of detail and freedom that can be found. You have multiple classes to choose from, so many different stats to master, and dozens of unique weapons, spells, and techniques that you can be used in the gameplay. You can also do so many unique missions or leave them out, which is completely up to you. And you can even change the outcome by killing or sparing certain people. And there are multiple endings to unlock, which are all very different meanings and ways to get to, which makes it a very replayable game. Not only is it a solid RPG with an incredible amount of value, but it's also one of the best Souls games that you can play, with some even calling it as good as Bloodborne or perhaps even better, which is normally considered the peak of this genre. Last but not least, the co-op capabilities of Elden Ring are super fun too, as they allow you to have fun with your friends or complete strangers, especially when you're taking on powerful bosses. And of course you can find other players too, depends on how you want to handle the experience. All in all, it's such an incredible gameplay rich game with exploration that can provide you with hours of fascinating fun. Now, God of War Ragnarok, the first thing that will be pointed out about is that it's a brilliant sequel. It takes everything that made the gameplay of 2018's God of War so good and makes it even better by adding new equipment, new ways of grappling, and hook enemies towards yourself. There's a lot of fun to be had and how you can mix up your tools to create fun combos. It's a game filled with adrenaline, so you'll always non-stop going from one place to another, fighting powerful bosses with unique movesets, participating in quick time events that they are actually more fun than they are repetitive. And even the exploration is so much fun because the games feature a large world that's built after the Norse mythology. Weapons feel different from each other, the skill tree that you unlock helps you personalize the moves you like more, and mixing up Atreus with Kratos during fights is always a great plus. And one thing that is worth pointing out too is that God of War is a very accessible game in terms of its controls and difficulty, whereas Elden Ring rewards exploration and figuring things out by yourself. You can even accidentally skip the tutorial in Elden Ring due to how randomly placed it is. Now, you can normally pick a better game out of the two when comparing games even if they have different genres, but it's not possible here because there are two different games that excel in their respective departments. God of War Ragnarok is a game that everyone can enjoy thanks to its accessibilities. On top of that, it is a cinematic adventure that is less about finding your place in the world and more about helping Kratos and Atreus realize their journey. You will take them around the world, fighting the conflicts, and always have a clear direction forward. And of course, it's an over-the-shoulder action game which has a unique heavy feel to its gameplay. Elden Ring is the exact opposite. It offers a world to the player that lets them find their place in it, however they want. It's a difficult game that not everyone can enjoy, and offers you an insane amount of freedom that allows you to be whatever you want. Whether it's a wizard, an archer, or a brute with swords, it's entirely up to you. And there's no clear direction aside from characters telling you what they want if you stick to the specific route. So both games do a perfect job for catering to their respective audiences. You can't impulsively call one better than the other because they're not trying to beat each other. Thus, the gameplay between the two is a tie. God of War Ragnarok is a very story-driven game that follows a cinematic structure, and you'll see that Kratos and Atreus get into many altercations, conversations, and it has a clear end to their journey, whereas you know the credits will roll. Every moment is occupied by a purpose or a conversation that will progress the development of these characters. Elden Ring, on the other hand, lets the players decide their own story. You can ignore much of everything and stick to enjoying the game for hundreds of hours in whichever way you would prefer. However, at the same time, there's so much lore to be found in a world that explains the detail of every small thing. Whether it's a random item you found or a giant boss that you're about to encounter, the game has a lot of detail that you can find and read if you like. It does explain a bit to you directly too, but the rest is entirely up to the player if they care. This part is very much up to the preference. If you want a story-driven game this Christmas, then you should go for God of War Ragnarok. And if you want something that feels like a library with an amazing world building, then Elden Ring is more of your liking. The polish of Souls games is normally not their forte. Sure, the world is always filled with an incredible amount of detail and the gameplay feels tightly knit. But there are many graphical and physical based inconsistencies that you can find, especially on PC, as you need mods to run the first Dark Souls games properly, even the remastered version. Surprisingly, Elden Ring is one of the most polished games From Software has developed and feels very much polished. The PC port did have issues, but they were mostly about random crashes than something that ruined your experience even after installing a bunch of patches. God of War Ragnarok is a single-player game with a story-driven world, so it's a very polished game too, with very few issues to be found, especially since it's not a multi-platform game as well. So it's really hard to pick any edge on the other of the game's side when both run so smooth and perfectly, even on other older hardware, as long as you don't experience any crashes though. We've gone over every important aspect of video game and compared Elden Ring and God of War Ragnarok to each other. Sure, I left out a soundtrack, but we both know that From Software games and God of War as a franchise are well known for their beautiful music pieces. So there's no need to go over that right now, especially when it comes to picking a game of the year. No matter how perfect everything is, you still have to pick that just one. But it's impossible. Both games are so perfect for their respective genres and target slightly different audiences. Thousands like me play and enjoy both, but it's undeniable that many fans of Souls games won't like God of War, and many fans of God of War will find Elden Ring too difficult to enjoy, or for whatever odd reason. So at the end of the day, it's all about preferences, and these preferences will be what cause a game of the year to be picked, as every publication and award show has their own standards and what they consider entertaining. We'll see who gets picked eventually, but both games are very much deserving of the title, and I'll be happy with whoever is going to be the winner. Now, excuse me while I go back to Platinum God of War Ragnarok, and I hope you can enjoy both these amazing titles as much as I do. 10 out of 10 for both, for sure. Please consider supporting me on my Patreon to see these special videos earlier, including with the extra additional rewards. And check out my playlist of all of these special videos that I already have released. I'm very proud of them, do let me know what you think of them. Alright, like and subscribe, have an amazing day, and I will see you all later.